Ferrari's Las Vegas Grand Prix got off to a very rough start, particularly in FP1, when Sainz ran over a manhole drain that wasn't fixed properly and had to change the entire chassis, resulting in a 10-place grid penalty for something that was definitely not his fault. Furthermore, it seems like the FIA's actions have aggravated Ferrari, not just because of the penalty, but also because they won't cover any of the costs, which go over $2 million. Ferrari has threatened to start a lawsuit against the governing body because this goes directly under the jurisdiction of the budget cap, and for things to be more interesting, they have the support of Red Bull. The Las Vegas Grand Prix race did not disappoint a single bit, but prior to it there were some events that definitely raised the eyebrows of the never-sleeping eye of F1 fans and experts. For example, the manhole cover incident that ruined Sainz's entire race before it even properly started in FP1 is definitely the most disappointing one in terms of how the sport handled the entire situation, as many experts feel like it shouldn't have gotten to this extent in the first place. Given the nature of the circuit, it's evident that manhole covers are something of a vital nuisance, especially after Vegas was a bit rainy during the free practice session, so you would think that after investing $500 million in a circuit, issues like this would not be on the menu, yet Sainz had to feel on his own skin literally the consequences of a loose manhole cover, as the concrete part has ripped through his chassis and caused irreparable damage to the battery of the car as well. This prompted Ferrari to change some parts and inexplicitly meant that they went over the allowed limit, which would see Sainz being subjected to a grid penalty for something he couldn't have avoided in any case. Carlos Sainz was visibly angry with how the entire situation played out, and when talking about this matter, the Spaniard went on to say, "There was clearly a safety issue at the track. That safety issue destroyed my car. My mechanics had to invest 5 hours into putting together a completely new car. On top of that, we get a 10-place grid penalty for something that we've nothing to do with. Just simply disappointed at the moment, not surprised." It wasn't just Sainz, however, who was the sole disappointed member of Ferrari, as his team boss has been very active and vocal on this entire matter. Elaborating on this, Vasseur threatened the FIA that they would not let this matter rest, and has officially announced that he will have private talks with the president, Ben Mohammed Sulayem, about the financial impact that this piece of concrete had on Sainz's car. It wasn't just Sainz who had to feel the impact of a loose manhole cover. Esteban Ocon suffered from a similar but separate accident, which only raised concerns about how safe the Vegas Grand Prix is. When asked about how Ferrari would handle this entire situation, Fred Vasseur went on to say, "The situation is that we damaged completely the monocoque, the engine, the battery, and I think it's just unacceptable. We had a very tough one. This will cost us a fortune. We effed up the season for Carlos. We won't be part of the FP2 for sure. We have to change the chassis. Okay, the show is the show and everything is going well, but I think it is just unacceptable for F1 today." I don't think that Vasseur is amplifying the anger here. He is completely in the right to want a refund from the FIA for something that couldn't have been altered by his team or his driver. Sainz has also complained of not feeling his legs for a couple of seconds after getting out of the car, which only goes to show that this was not a simple crash that we just witnessed. And in times where Las Vegas faced a lot of criticism, which was vastly erased with the race show itself on Sunday, Vasseur has thrown yet another bombshell at the FIA, adding, "This will be a private discussion that I will have with all the stakeholders. I'm a bit more upset with the way they'd managed it than with the incident itself. We've had an incident in the past where even in Monaco, at the top of the circuit 2 or 3 years ago, I think on the curb at turn 1. It was also the case in Malaysia. You had the case 2 times in Baku with Bottas in 2016 and Russell in 2019. This is difficult to anticipate and to fix, but the way you manage the incident is important. Street circuits are something that has been on the rise in the past couple of years, and with the increased interest in the sport, it is the expected consequence after all. While we have drivers complaining that they would be much more on more traditional circuits such as Kyalami in South Africa, the talks about bringing the sport back spark zero interest from the investors and the financial bodies of the sport, mostly because the revenue from that circuit would be nowhere near comparable with the newly formed tracks like the ones in Saudi Arabia, Miami and Las Vegas. But Ferrari's actions tend to change the entire narrative just a little bit, because if the FIA accepts that they were in the wrong here, and if they refund the sum that Ferrari spent on reparations, then changes to the circuit's outlets might happen after all. We did see Lando Norris being thrown away by a bump in the road, as elaborated by Andrea Stella, and Fernando Alonso did say that the F1 cars are not made to race in Vegas. But what did Red Bull say about the entire Ferrari FIA incident? Verstappen, to the surprise of many, defended the Maranello team and took a straight dig towards Wolff, saying that his defence is nothing he wouldn't expect from him due to his nature. But had it been the other way around, and had Hamilton or Russell run over that manhole cover, the narrative would have been a lot different. When talking about this matter to a further extent, Verstappen suggested that a rule change is definitely necessary. As he added, the rules have to change for that. It's the same if you get taken out and if you have a big accident. You can lose parts of the engine, energy store, all these things. First of all, that needs to change. These things can be taken into consideration, that if you take a penalty or not, it will not be counted. The teams should not be allowed to have a say in these things because, for sure, they'll vote against that. Personally, I do think that it's very harsh on Carlos. But in this political environment, wherein every team thinks about themselves and they, of course, are going to say no, take the penalty. But according to Alonso, incidents like this are prone to happen because the cars are just not built for tracks like Las Vegas. The spectacle was amazing. The fans shared pictures of the entire grandstand, and while some of them paid $5,000 for a ticket just to look at the metal construction over the long straight, the first race definitely showed potential for a lot of improvement. However, with the evolution of the F1 cars, it goes without saying that there will be a lot of question marks over this Grand Prix, not in terms of longevity, but it already signed a 10-year contract with the sport, but in terms of adjustment. When talking about it, the two-time world champion went on to say, "There's not much fun to drive at this kind of circuit. At 360 kilometers an hour with no grip, no visibility, and bouncing like hell, I know from the outside the show maybe look good, but these cars are not made to go around corners at 80 kilometers an hour. They're made to go to Suzuka, to Barcelona and Silverstone, and maximise the potential. That is where we need to balance the championship and the calendar. It is what we are doing, but I don't think that it's the only way to go. We need to keep the traditional races as well, where the Formula 1 car can shine." There is obviously a lot of positivism and negativism around Las Vegas, but with Ferrari threatening to not let the situation rest until it's resolved in their own matter, the FIA has a huge issue on their hands. For starters, if they comply with anything Ferrari asks of them, then it will be more than certain that other teams will look for compensation for incidents that happened a long time ago. Similar to what would happen to the 2021 championship if Massa is given back the 2008 title due to the Crashgate scandal. So, one decision could lead to another, and it could open a can of worms that the sport or Ferrari might not be able to handle. So the question is, will the FIA show empathy with the Maranello team, and will they get recompensated for the financial damage of the manhole cover?